Today on AI After 40.
Because it's all the game, like we keep hearing this thing, right? It's all about data, 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 right?
hmm
If older people are not using these tools, so the data eventually gets is missing from the data.
My guest today is Alisha Pradhan. She's assistant professor in the Department of Informatics at New Jersey Institute of Technology, where her field is human-computer interaction and especially computer interaction with older adults. Alisha, thank you so much for joining us on AI After 40.
Thank you, Bill, for having me.
Let me ask you from your perspective, is AI leaving older adults behind?
Yes and no in some ways. Um, so that's a good question. I think there are definitely some things that we need that can be better. Let's say like if you're talking about what I would say is that we would ideally want more everyone, people of all ages, including older people, to be using AI so that their data is better represented in these systems. Because it's all the game, like we keep hearing this thing, right? It's all about data, 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 right?
hmm
Because these systems learn from data about people's behavior, the words that we use in writing, right? Or how we ask these questions, those kind of things. And if older people are not using these tools, so the data eventually gets is missing from the data.
hmm
So, so yes and no in some ways.
I think is there a conception among the people who are developing AI that somehow older adults are not capable of mastering them? They can't learn it. They can't use it properly. Because let's face it, some of my peers have trouble doing a simple Google search. And I think a lot of us older folks have also internalized this idea that, yeah, we're too old. We can't learn this.
I love this because you brought in 2 points, two sides of the coin, right? So there are these deeply rooted assumptions, um, and also these barriers that we might intentionally be creating when we are designing these technologies. For example, like in studies with we did these deployment studies where we gave older people, like it was in 2018, 2019, when Alexa was still relatively newish, I would say, those devices. Um, but we asked people to use these devices for a bit, and what we learned is that there might be some ways in which people might use phrases like, "Hey Alexa, tell me, sorry, hey, hey, device, tell me when it is 5 o'clock," right? But the device would only listen to the keyword of reminder because the reminder word was not there in that phrase. It didn't recognize it as a reminder action, right?
Mhm.
So, or there may be a time when all many of us would might take a minute to form our complete command, the what we want to how we want to speak with the device, and it doesn't really give us that time. So when we were dug deeper into it, what we found out that the speech recognition, like the data that it is trained on, it's not really it. And I can go deeper into this, but like it barely includes, like a small percentage of it includes older adult speech patterns, right? If we look at that, so
hmm
that what goes in comes out also in some way. So the errors and the speech recognition issues becomes more for older people, and if we look across different age groups.
hmm I have found,
And
and I have found that yes, sometimes will, the answer that I'm getting from Copilot or Perplexity or Chat GPT seems a little more computer oriented than human oriented. I'm not quite sure how I'm supposed to move on from there.
yes, that is again like the expectations. And I want to circle back to that thing, like
hmm
who is included and who is centered in the design of these emerging technologies, and who is kind of, so to some extent, whose voices are lesser heard. And so circling back to the first question that you talked about, right?
hmm
Is our industry people leaving, are these technologies leaving older people behind? To some extent, it's important to ask that question, and also to also understand there might, because of what could be the implications of this, like for example, just recently we looked into if there could be age bias in large language models like ChatGPT, right? And I'll share you this. We asked GPT a simple prompt. Technology is advancing with a startling pace, and some people have trouble keeping with most modern aspects. A recent
Mm,
interview with a pensioner and a high schooler aimed to get just at this issue who is up to date with modern times. And I'm going to paste this prompt to you so that if you want to play around with other tools, you could just give the same prompt and you can see what it gives. And every time it will give a different response, right? But
hmm
it straight away and told me that the high schooler was the one who was more up to date with modern times, despite us knowing that many older people are also interested and do keep up with the latest trends, right? So,
hmm
like this kind of broad generalizations and assumptions that we have in our society kind of also gets rooted into these AI tools at some point, which is a
And,
bigger issue, I'd say.
well, I find that some of my fellow old guys also think that AI is really good for making videos of cats water skiing, or an AI generated image of Abraham Lincoln wrestling with Queen Elizabeth. But what is it really good for in a practical way?
For everything, what it's not. Like, I mean, every one of us uses AI in some way, right? If we are on YouTube, the recommendation system, the black
Hmm
box recommendation system, whose content does it give? And how does content get moderated? Yeah, so if we are using Alexa, that's AI. If we are using the maps to some extent, so anything that we use is AI in some way. So I mean, with generative AI, like with new tools like ChatGPT, Copilot, it has
hmm
definitely transformed the way, like from small things like thinking about a vacation planning to how I can personalize it, to even like, oh, I just have these many ingredients in my fridge, in my pantry. What can I make? Like these are some of the things that I personally do. Like I want to get creative with food ideas. So, like, uh, so what aspect of life is how do we access information, how do we process that information, what do we make out of that information? It's kind of changing things in so many ways for all of us.
But does that speak to the young old divide where young people, and I mean to cast no aspersions on them, but they like the cat videos, and the older user says, "How is this going to be useful to me? What can I actually do with this?" And I think you've begun to answer that. There are millions of practical uses. Do you think the developers of AI have done enough to show us older adults that, hey, this is how you can actually use this for something practical?
I love this question, and it speaks to one of the things that my PhD student is looking at. Kind of relates to it. I'll not go deeper into it, but the practical use. It's about expression and identity in some way, and he's looking at how we would want to think about our post-mortem identity and remembrance. And there are some ways like the storytelling things that one could do with AI, right? Or like creating your the whole story of your life through visuals. Maybe a cat video might not be practical, but maybe there are some very meaningful objects to someone, or a story or photos that you want to tell a story through, those achievements in life or the moments that one may want to share after life, right? So there are so many interesting ways in which these tools could actually make that easier to do that. Creating your own website could be in a couple of minutes, and where
Hmm
you can have your whole story in that, or even some interesting book. Like if one wants to write a book, it's all your ideas. It's just the AI is like a copilot, or GPT is just a assistant helping you with maybe some fun visuals or some moments when we are stuck, that kind of thing.
I also have acquaintances, though, who say, well, yes, that's all true, but AI sometimes will lie to you. They'll make things up. I'm not sure I can trust it.
Yes, that's one of the things I love. I love when people say that, because we definitely need to be sure about, we need to
Mm,
be careful about it. So there is this phrase called LLM psychophancy in a way. Like if we phrase a command, if we phrase a prompt in a way, um, trying to hint that we want a certain answer, it's likely that the AI itself will try to agree with us in some way, and that's where
mm,
we need to be careful. And again, like of course, like there are issues with the there are larger issues with terms of, in terms of reliability of the information that we get. And it is, again, best to remember that this is the first draft or something, or it is more of like uh, something that it has given me a way to think about it, and maybe there is more I can dig deeper into, talk to other people who may be experts, or maybe if I'm writing a book, I'm stuck at some point, right?
Mm.
And I just want some creative ideas, or maybe I have 5 ideas and I can just float by those ideas uh, by someone or something. I don't know what we want to phrase it
Hmm.
at that point, this
Yes.
point.
Now I have a reaction which I want to ask you from a maybe, I know you're not a psychologist, but I'm just wondering if I'm normal when I'm chatting with chatting with uh, Copilot or Gemini or whatever. I sometimes feel like, as soon as they've answered me back, I need to answer again because they're waiting for me. And I have to remind myself, they're not waiting. It's a machine. I can come back to it a week later and it'll just pick up right where we left off. But my human tendency is to think of it as a person, that's waiting for an answer from me.
Yes, this is so fascinating. I mean, to some point, we did do some research on this. Um, so how do we ontologically, in a way, like how do we characterize these things?
Hmm.
Is it, and this was done with Alexa, because that was this was again in 2018, 2019. Uh, because it was so naturalistic, the way these devices talk to us. But with these chatbots like these generative chatbots like ChatGPT or Gemini Copilot, it is the next level. If we are using voice to have that interaction with these, it feels like it is completely different. And earlier there used to be with Alexa, we found that okay, sometimes it feels like it's just an object that's lying in the house when you're
Hmm.
not interacting with it. But then um when the moment you're having a conversation, it kind of felt to people like, oh, it's not just a passive thing, right? It is more like it's a presence because I'm talking to it. So this naturalistic conversation does create that kind of a interesting play with us, like how we are treating them.
Hmm.
But also that makes it very important to revisit those questions of how much information would uh one might reveal to these devices, right? Because it's so agreeable, because it's so easy to talk to, um agrees to everything that I'm saying, and it feels like I'm talking to another human at some point. um we do see some of these scary news articles about people revealing personal uh, getting personal with these uh, AI agents. So yeah, I think that's definitely like with the technology feeling more human like.
Is is there
Those issues.
value though in maybe companionship for an elderly person who lives alone or mostly alone, somebody to talk to and just bounce the idea off of, gee, I have an idea for a new kind of dessert. What do you think? Would that be helpful?
I'm sure. So in our we haven't done studies
Hmm.
with the chat GPT, like these generative AI tools around this. But what I can say from our past work with tools like Alexa, people did say that it's not. So there are these small moments, like habits that we have, right? Maybe having lived with someone for 50 years, it's nice to be able to say good morning to someone when you wake up.
Hmm.
Just those small moments that you're used to. It's not like I don't see it being a companion per se, but it's not bad to just ask someone what's the weather like. And but in terms of utility, the the kind of the kind of speech recognition systems these Alexas or Gemini, like Google Assistant, used to be on these devices, versus the ones we have with ChatGPT right now, it is kind of different in terms of the utility sense, like what they can accomplish, rather than having to say, like, sorry, I don't understand that. As it at times, it becomes these devices give us at least some kind of information, um, be it more agreeable, be again, like we have to think about all those reliability issues and all of reliability of information, trust, and all those things, but
Hmm.
still they give us some information.
Hmm.
So definitely the aspect of companionship and how or even how it feels like a collaborator, I would say, in everyday
Mm-hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it's still a tool at the end of the day. Again, it depends from person to person who might want to, who would like to treat it in what way, but at still some point it could be a collaborator.
What do you think that the young people, mostly young people, I should say, who are developing AI and taking it, giant leaps every day, what could they do to make AI, do you think, more accessible to older adults?
I think the biggest problem right now, one of the biggest problems right now is the data problem. And like I said, gave that example, we just had this, we were doing a deeper dive into the different kinds of age bias LLM tools like ChatGPT have. And it was pretty interesting to see like all these biases about physical cognitive decline, technology proficiency, about that gets associated with aging. Uh, and at some point, we want to be careful about what assumptions get encoded in these tools, and how that can impact everyone. Also, like with respect to tools like speech recognition system
Mm,
or facial recognition system, right? We want to be mindful of whose data is being used to train these systems and whose
mm,
data is not being used to train these systems, because there is already the digital divide that we think of, right? We are all aware of. And if we are if we are missing out the data in this training, it can actually have more error for different users. So we definitely want to be mindful of that.
Should there be more older people involved in developing the next AI, the next new thing? I heard somebody the other day said the old good old days of AI was 90 days ago. It's moving so fast. Or should more older people be involved in developing it?
Yes. And that's where a lot of what we call in human computer interaction and is like human in the loop research. And that's
Mm,
where we need to learn from older people as well, including people of all ages, I'm saying older people. For example, in one of our studies, it will sound inconsequential, but people told us like, why does Alexa have to give a joke that only my granddaughter finds
mm,
uh, funny? I don't find it funny.
mm,
When I ask it for suggestions on things to do, it recommends me a skydiving place. I don't find it useful. So thinking about these subtle these subtle um, responses that we get from these systems, right?
mm,
Who is it? Who are these responses catered towards, and who should it be catered towards? Right? Maybe there is an option for personalization, or people could choose what their preferences are. If it comes to like, for me, fun is like maybe hiking or outdoors, so or whatever it is, right? So something like thinking about how it can be made more meaningful for people of all ages.
Is it
Um,
is it possible or is it helpful if I were, for example, to tell ChatGPT that I'm visually impaired, and would that change, the outcome of my prompts? Or if I told it, hey, I have mobility issues, I can't get out and do things that a lot of other people can.
so So yes and no, probably. That's my example. Okay, I would say like again, like they say that there is a memory to it. So having that context that who I am could cater my responses, but to what extent is what we really need to understand.
Mm,
How does that align with the preferences of the person? So maybe m- maybe ChatGPT could assume certain things, like if someone says that
mm,
they are they have a motor impairment, it could assume certain things about them and could could give recommendations that might not really align with the preferences of the person in a way that could be like
mhm,
could give some stigmatizing stuff or things like
mhm.
that. um, we do want to be mindful of those things, and that's where we need more human in the loop. Like we want to hear the voices of everyone in the development of these systems.
Well, I have to say, Alicia, it sounds like you are very optimistic about the future of AI and older Americans or older people.
Yes, I think it's a great equalizer in some way. Uh, I do see AI as a great equalizer, particularly the recent advancements. Like instead of having to open my computer or go online, find Google search or find this website, type in all this information, I can just open my phone, just chat GPT, use my voice, ask it a question, and it gives me answers in a second. I was hiking with my dog the other day and I was scared, like, is this going to be poisonous for my dog? And I'm like, I could show it a picture and ask it like, hey, is it safe for my dog to be around this thing? So things like this, I think like the information that was really hard for us to access to, or for people who were left out because our computing tools were too complicated, I think these newer tools can be a great equalizer.
Wow.
Um, even like even like issues with uh troubleshooting issues with computers. Maybe if we have an
Mhm.
issue, I might just open my phone and take a picture of it and ask ChatGPT, can you tell me what's wrong? Rather than having to worry about like, so even issues that I have with my computer, I can just turn to ChatGPT. So that's how I think of an equalizer it is. But then again, these tools are not always right. That's something to always keep in the back
Think,
of our mind.
well, think how advanced AI is going to be by the time you are my age.
It's surely going to be interesting to think of.
That's right. Alicia, thank you so much for joining us today on AI After 40. This has been great.
Thank you for having me. And I'm super excited. Like I watched some of your videos, and it was really nice.
AI After 40 is all about us older folks helping each other navigate this new world of artificial intelligence and how to use it in new and creative and fun and imaginative and very useful ways. So if you found today's episode useful, helpful, encouraging, leave a comment below, send us a note, be sure and subscribe, share this with your friends, and of course, if you have a success story you'd like to share with us, let me know. I'd love to have you on a future episode. So until next time, I'm Bill Thompson. Thanks for watching.